How's it going, guys? My name is Dom, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to create CSS only avatars that display initials inside a circle. So I wasn't fully sure what to name these things, but I'm sure you've seen them before, where essentially on some websites where you have the ability to upload a profile photo, if you don't choose to upload that photo, the website is going to fall back to displaying your initials inside a circle. So this right here is easily done using CSS, but you can use JavaScript if you want to go down that path. But if you don't, I'm going to be timestamping the video when we get to that point, so you can do CSS only if you want to. And one more thing before jumping into the code, if you haven't used CSS pseudo elements before, I highly recommend you watch today's video, because we're going to be doing some magic with CSS in order to get those initials to display inside the circle. All right, let's begin work on the CSS only avatars. Okay, so going inside this tab right here, we're going to be starting from scratch to, of course, create what I just showed you. Now, going inside the text editor, we have this as the HTML. So currently there is no content on the page. So we can begin this by creating the HTML that we need for a single avatar. Okay, so this right here is going to be done using a div with a class of avatar, just like this. Now, you're going to also want to give your div another attribute called data-label, and this right here is simply just a data attribute that we're going to be calling label. Now, whatever you put inside here as the value, that is going to be what gets displayed inside your avatar. So right here, you want to put your user's initials. So if, for example, your person first name starts with D and the last name starts with C, you want to put DC inside the label. Now, you can also have this solution where you place the actual initials inside the div itself, but I kind of like this attribute way. And it also lets us grab this value from CSS instead. So I'm going to be showing you that very shortly, but this right here is all we need when it comes to the HTML for the avatar. So heading up inside the style tag right up here, let's write out some CSS to, of course, make that actual avatar work and, be displayed. So we can begin by targeting the class of avatar. Now, the first step here is very important. We're going to be setting a font size of 16 pixels on the avatar itself. Now, you guys, of course, can change this to suit your own needs, but essentially this font size is going to be used for the text inside the avatar itself. So these initials, as well as the width and height of your circle itself. So we can achieve that by simply saying a width of 1 em and a height of 1 em. Now, once again, you guys feel free to change this. Personally, I might actually say 3 em for my width and height. So now essentially it's going to be 3 times the current font size of 16 pixels. The reason for doing it this way is so our actual text is going to be consistent with the width and height of the circle. All right. So more on that very shortly. But for now, we can also place a border dash radius here of 50% to create the circle itself. I might just comment this line out and just head inside the browser and show you what we have. So in the browser, on a refresh, we have something like this. We get nothing. So let me just quickly add a background here of the dcode green color, save this, go back in here, refresh, and we get this right here. So applying that border radius is going to now give us our actual circle. Okay. Now, the next step of this is going to be to start getting that label inside the avatar. We're going to be doing this using a CSS pseudo element. So drop down here, we can now say avatar, then do : after, okay? Now, inside here, we can now say content equal to, then call the attribute function and pass in here data-label. So if you're not familiar with CSS pseudo elements, this : after is going to create a virtual element in CSS containing the content of whatever data is inside that label. Of course, in this case, it's going to be DC. I can save this, go back in the browser, refresh, and we get this right here. As we can see, we have that after as a child of the div right there. Now, let's position this DC in the center of the avatar. Going back inside here, we can give this, the avatar itself, right? We can give this a display of inline-flex, okay? And an align items of center and a justify content of center. So putting these three properties on the parent avatar class, it is now going to center vertically and horizontally the after pseudo element. I can save this, go back, refresh, and we get this right here. Now, as we can see, the font size here is being represented as the font size of that text. So if, for example, I say 24 pixels, save this, refresh, it's going to get bigger, but also the width and height gets bigger. So that is why we're using those relative units here, EM, to of course give us the width and height of the container itself. The last two properties of the after pseudo element is going to be the font family. Of course, up to you guys. I'm going to be using the Radix Pro fallback to sans serif, and lastly, a color of white. I can save this, go back in the browser, refresh, and we get this right here. So we're basically done with the core component of the avatar itself. Now, there is one crucial thing about this which was not covered, and that is the color of the background. So I've defaulted this to be, that green color, but of course, for different users, imagine you have multiple avatars in one section, they all should be a different color. So there are two options for this. If you don't want to use JavaScript, you can simply get rid of the color, or actually you can set a default color of something like a middle gray, like 555. So if I save this and refresh, we of course now get that gray, but you can then override the color using inline styles. You can say something like style and make the background equal to, once again, just that green color as an example. Okay, save this and refresh, and it appears there. So that is your one option. You can make multiple and change the color depending on some logic that you want to decide to do. That's one option. The second option is going to be using JavaScript. So that's what I've done here actually inside my demo. So I'm going to be showing you this JavaScript solution just to apply the background on your avatars. So I'm going to get rid of this inline style and then head down inside the script tag on the bottom. So the first step here is going to be to grab an instance, or grab every single avatar on the page. So we can say here const avatars equal to document.query selector all. Going to select every single element with a class of avatar just like that. Then we'll say avatars.forEach. For every single avatar here, we'll call the avatar A. Okay, so for every single avatar, we're going to run some logic based on the value inside the label. Okay, so this right here is essentially going to get the character code for both these characters inside the string. Now, this right here is just a numeric representation of that character. So, for example, I can say const character code red equal to a.dataset.label.car code at and pass in through 0. Now, I'll explain why I've called this red very shortly, but this right here, a.dataset.label, is simply getting the value of DC. This is like saying dc.carcode at. Now, character code at 0 just means get me the character code for D. I'll do the exact same thing, okay? Actually, I'll just console.log what this car code red value is. I'll save this and refresh the browser. In the console, we get 68. So D means 68. Okay, let's get the same one this time, car code green or character code green. This one here is going to be at index 1, grabbing the character code for C instead of D. Let's log out the green one, and the green one is going to actually be 67. So in that case, of course, C is going to be 67. So we have those two unique numbers. So we're going to be using those numbers to generate an RGB value for the color. we have red and we have green, and we're going to be generating blue very shortly. But essentially the problem is, right, if you were to just have a single character inside here, so only D, the green is actually going to be not a number. So we can see here we get none for the green. So we can simply say, look, if we only had one character, then fall back to the car code red instead. Save this, and now we get the same 68 for both the red and the green. So let's now use these two unique numbers to generate some RGB. So we can say here, const red equal to math.power, pass through here the car code red. Let's power it to 7. Okay, then say mod 200. So what's going on here? I'll console.log the value of red just like this, refresh the browser, and we get 32. So we're going to be using 32 as our color for red, for RGB, right? So we're simply with math.power, we're taking our red and we're just trying to make it a random number really high up. So we're doing power by 7, giving us a huge number. Then we're saying mod 200, which means we're only going to get a number that is up to 200 as red. So this thing can be 1 million. If I do the remainder of that by 200, you're going to get less than 200. So that's what the mod is doing. The mod is simply restricting us to be under 200. Why 200? Well, the reason is because we're using white as the text color here. 255, 255, 255 is going to be white. You can't have white text on a white background. So I'm basically saying here, look, let's restrict it to only a dark color, or at least a darkish color. That way you don't get problems with the contrast. Okay. Now that's red. Let's do green. We'll say green equal to the exact same thing, this time passing through car code green. Also, this solution here, because it's based on the values, if you refresh the page, it's going to be the same each time. So you don't get random colors depending on, when you refresh the page. So it's going to be consistent through your application. Now, red is that number, green is refresh, 32 also, because of course we're using just D. Let's make it DC, try again. We get 32 and 123. So we got red, green, then lastly for blue, we're going to simply add together both red and green and then mod that by 200. So go down here and we can say blue equal to just simply here, red plus green mod 200. Now we get RGB just like that. So now we have this RGB combination for the character DC, or the characters D and C. Let's now apply this to the background of the avatar. Inside here, we can simply say avatar.style.background equal to, then pass in here RGB as the CSS value. And we can make this here using the template strings, red, then we can say green, then we can say blue just like this. And also guys, I'm using the backticks near the 1 on your keyboard to enable these template strings so we can actually pass in the values just like this. So now if I refresh the page here, we get that unique color for D and C. Let's go and inspect this real quick, and we can see there we get those 3 RGB values applied to the style. So you guys can create multiple of these. I'll just make a couple of copies here. We can say A and Z. We can say, Y and T, right? Save this and refresh, and we get those 3 right there. And that is all for today's video, guys. Hope you enjoyed this one and you learned something. If you did, make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video.